Bored if not. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I have a whole lot of things that we're going to cram into 1 hour, so we're going to go pretty fast. No? All right, I can just use the keyboard.
Just go get the battery.
So welcome. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jonny Christensen. This is kind of my journey, but I'll tell you, 17 years ago, I was sitting right in your shoes. Who's a new agent the last 6, 12 months? Yeah? Everybody? Anybody sneak in? Because we're going to have to kick you out if you snuck in. All right, just kidding. So I was actually a brand new agent. I jumped in 2007. I'll show it to you. And we can have Cameron send these to you too if you want them. So I was a brand new agent in 2007. Basically got off a mission, jumped right into real estate school. I grew up wanting to be an FBI, CIA agent, something really cool, and I just fell in love with real estate, and it took me away. I actually was going to just kind of do real estate part-time while I was finishing my accounting degree, which is one of the ways to get in the FBI, white collar crime, I guess. But I sold a few deals, started participating in Keller Williams, and I just fell in love with it. And before I jump into all of this, you kind of have to kind of understand my background, why I wanted to go do a lot of this. And to be honest, I think probably 90% of everything I have empire-wise, wealth-wise, like I contribute to Keller Williams. Like I learned so much from Keller Williams. And we usually have two types of agents. We got the one that just submerses themselves in it, and we got the visitor that will come in and visit, and I just always challenge you to just jump all the way in, read the books, go to the classes, all that type of stuff. But my family tree has to be probably one of the brokest paycheck to paycheck family trees. If you Google Christensen's, that's the definition you're going to look up. I grew up with a single mom, fantastic mom, but she just struggled to provide for 2 kids, on a secretary's salary. But she did whatever she could. But I just grew up not with a lot, I guess. And later in life, I kind of learned, a lot of my money motivation isn't necessarily about gaining wealth. It's about moving away from not having it, being broke. I was trying to run away from that more than I was necessarily running towards money. And this course is just a whole bunch of things that I put together. So this isn't like a random Keller Williams course. I tend to teach a lot of the wealth building classes around the region, around the state. And I kind of wanted just to have a very authentic, journey course on the wealth building topics of just, these are all the principles. These are all the things that I contribute my success towards. And we're going to journey through 10 of them. Some will go fairly quick. Some will, go slow, just depending on, what conversation you want to have. But we're supposedly ending at 11. So this is kind of what my world looks like a little bit right now, just to introduce myself and kind of just where, a lot of the things that I've done come from. But I was a new agent from 2007. I sold real estate for about 4 years till about end of 2010, and I took over the team leader job. So Shoney, you guys probably know Shoney Ivins. I did that, KW Westfield team leader for a decade, so 10 years, which is a long time in a team leader role just because it's a really, really big job. I stepped out, replaced myself with a team leader. I ended up hiring Shoney after the first one. So I own the majority of this market center. And then I also at the same time stepped into the state regional director role. So Keller Williams, we're the biggest company in the country, in the world. We have 160,000 agents in the United States. We have 200,000 around the world. All 160,000 in the United States is basically in 850 market centers, just like this one around the country. They're all franchises off of Keller Williams Realty down in Austin, Texas. It was an existing franchise that I bought from Boyd Brown. He owns the Salt Lake City office. He also owns the one in Cottonwood Heights. But he was the majority owner, and then I bought him out. But my role as regional director is I am responsible for holding all those franchisees, all those owners accountable on just doing their job. So, my world kind of looks complicated and big now, but the first 10, 15 years was extremely monotonous, boring. I did the same things all day, every day. And that's kind of what I'll jump into my first principle. But the last 5 years, we got into title and insurance. So we own an insurance company called Utah Home and Auto. Still boggles my mind that name was available. But Utah Home and Auto, which is actually an opportunity for some of our agents, once they close enough buyer transactions, usually 8 to 10 in a year, they can actually purchase a share of our company, which is cool. And then title, we own basically a third of Real Advantage Title. Some of our real estate agents, you got to be around 10 million volume to participate in that core service with us. So those are all opportunities for you. I teach a lot. There's a process to go get certified as an instructor in Keller Williams, which is great. Even a lot of classes that are fundamentally awesome on the journey to do that. And then Argentina, I just fell backwards into. I was team leader. I was recruiting a guy to be our commercial director. He's still an agent here. You might see him. His name's Jeff Wells. He's like almost 70. He'll come over and sit over there in team meetings every once in a while, but total rock star. He knew a bunch of just great people down in Argentina. So we put a group together and launched the country of Argentina for Keller Williams. So I own 20, he owns 20% of the master franchise. So every year we travel down to Buenos Aires. I don't speak Spanish, I wish I did. But we travel down there for their family reunion. So we've got, what are we now, like 600 agents. We've got 8 market centers down there. They're smaller. They're like 90 agents per office versus how big they are here. But really cool, and learning about a whole nother country and taxation and all the principles down there is fascinating. And then really what I started with was me and my partner Clay Winder. If you've met Clay yet, he teaches some classes. We started Red Sign Team in 2008. We just had our little retreat yesterday, but traditionally we're one of the top 3-4 teams in the state, usually number 1 or 2 in Keller Williams. And we got, I don't know, what are we at, 20 agents, something like that on our real estate team right now. We usually close around 3 million GCI every year the last couple of years. And we're ready for the market to get booming. But I just love owning stuff. So I own a bunch of, rental properties. We'll get into that. One of the things we'll show you is kind of left side, right side, which just looks very complex, but I always recommend starting with just, an S Corp for your real estate business. When you're ready to go buy your first rental, create an LLC on your right side, but just kind of the complexity, how fast your world goes when you just show up and just do all the right things. So here's the 10 things that we're going to cover. The reason I call this 10 steps to 10 million is I fully believe, if you just go implement a lot of just these same principles, I think it's very doable to 10x your net worth every decade. So my goal, being a young 20-year-old person, broke, negative net worth, I had that goal. I want to be a net worth millionaire by 30, which I hit. And then every decade after that, I just want to 10x it. So 40, 10 million, 50, 100 million, 60, a billion. Obviously inflation, sends things out of whack, but real estate is one of the most predictable long games on just wealth building in the country. And that's why eventually I chose real estate, was the fact that, I didn't think I was never good enough at sports to go pro and make a lot of money that way. I knew I was probably never going to go create a company. And I like technology, but I didn't think I wanted to go write code and do all that stuff. So I felt like real estate was the most plausible pathway to increase the likelihood that I could go make a bunch of money, right? And that's why I just came in and listened to what everybody told me to do, and I was not afraid to go work hard. And then just in the short term, it looks hard and boring. Over the long term, it looks like you're the smartest person in the world, right? Like you go talk to any old person ever, the number one real estate investing advice is what? They say, I wish I would have bought more real estate when I was younger. I wish I would have bought real estate. A grandpa of mine who passed away, he told me the same story for legitimately 35 years about this duplex by McDonald's, an American Fork that he could have bought for $12,000. And for 35 years, he told me the same story of regret over and over and over. I'm like, go buy it. Eventually you got to start. But that's the problem, is most people just don't ever start, So we're going to go through these 10, okay? You ready? Okay. The first one, I don't cover too much, but the first one I always say is you just got to go master your job and career. And that's the one thing that, when people look at my life, they're like, oh, I want diversity. I want all these streams of income. I want to go out and invest. I want to go own companies. And I am a big believer of the law of sequential mastery. You start with one thing, you master it, and then move on to the next thing. So often, so my generation growing up, I was born in '84. I'm a millennial still, on the older side, but I'm a millennial, okay? I grew up watching 30-minute Ninja Turtle episodes when I was growing up. I remember eating cereal in front of the TV. So growing up, my brain was kind of trained with a 30-minute attention span, right? The generation below me, they grew up on what? YouTube. What's the average length of a YouTube video? 7 minutes on YouTube right now. So, and then my kids, they're growing up on what? TikTok. What's the average TikTok length? 6 seconds. Yeah, 5, 6, 7 seconds. So it's almost like society is counterintuitive on training us on how to go live a big life, because it's just, we keep wanting to change things and mess things up, and it's just sad for me to see new agents come in, they learn the right principles, they work their butt off, they get to some sort of great income level, 100, 200, $300,000, and then like 3 years down the road, they're just like, well, I'm kind of bored, I want to go start a landscaping company. I'm like, all right, whatever, you know. You just have to commit to being the best at something and go freaking do it for a decade. Just go do it for a decade, okay? And as soon as you start, uh, you know, when you reach those complacent stages, the burnout stages or the bored stages, you have to let your money do the heavy lifting of your attention span, not your time. As soon as you start dividing your time, you're now spreading yourself, you're becoming, you know, mediocre at a bunch of things, and you just will never get to the momentum stage where you're making a bunch of money per hour. And you just have to stay committed. And that's the one thing that Clay and I agreed on very early, is we were willing to just work our butts off, and we were willing to just stay focused and just keep, you know, beating the drum basically. So that's usually my recommendation, is don't look at someone 10 years, 15 years ahead of you and think that you should go live the same life that they are now. Live the life that they were living that put them on pace for that. Does that make sense? So let's talk about de-weeding roadblocks, emotional, mental. These are slightly outdated, but everybody's kind of got a process for wealth. You know, Tony Robbins has, you know, the financial security phase, vitality phase, independence phase, freedom phase. You even look, these are pretty outdated even the last several years, like what percent of our social classes are in the poor class, the working class, you know, middle class. 52% basically are at under that median income level, and just with how expensive life is right now, it's just it's hard, right? You see stat after stat after stat of what percent of, you know, retirees aren't going to have enough money, like when's Medicaid and Social Security running out, like all these things. And that was the first thing that I learned about real estate, is no one's going to run and save me. Like nobody's coming to just give me a wheelbarrow full of money, right? Like you have to take your retirement planning and your wealth building in your own hands. And sadly, a lot of the people that have had great jobs have learned that the hard way too, that their company is not adequately planning their retirement for them, you know. When you get into real estate, you have two jobs. I'm going to go help as many buyers and sellers make you know, great decisions, and I'm going to have an earned income that way. But I got to go out and start investing day one. So often our agents wait until, oh, I'm going to make more money in the next year, the next year, the next year, and they keep kicking the can down the road of when they start investing, and you just can't do that. You just get behind on it. Even Dave Ramsey, if you've ever been a part of Dave Ramsey's programs, all great stuff, you know, and so some of those have helped me. So my question is, I saw this article a couple years ago from Brian Tracy. I always liked a lot of that content, but 5 reasons why we don't become wealthy. So in our country, I just got back from India several weeks ago, and I'm so grateful and happy and, you know, just filled with joy here. Like we're so dang spoiled in America compared to a lot of other countries. The abundance, even if you didn't have the best family tree, you were still probably born in a great city or a great society or had some other external, you know, influences that may have helped you like they did me. But in a country like ours, with all the opportunities we have, why is it that so few people retire financially independent? Here's what the top 5 reasons are. So maybe some of these connect with you, but the first one is who me. First, at the top of the list is that it never occurs to them. The average person has grown up in a family where he's never met or known anyone who is wealthy. He goes to school or socializes with people who are not wealthy. He works with people who are not wealthy. He has a reference group or social circle outside of work who are not wealthy. No role models who are wealthy. If this happened through your formative years up to the age of 20, you can grow up and become a fully mature adult in our society. It may never occur to you that it's just as possible for you to become wealthy as for anyone else. This is why people who grow up in homes where their parents are wealthy are much more likely to become wealthy as adults than they grew up in homes where their parents are not. So the first reason you don't become wealthy is it never occurs to them it's possible. I don't know exactly how accurate this is, but I think I was probably 22, 23 years old until I really can remember meeting a net worth millionaire. It's just the world I grew up in, the family I associated with, the schools I went to, the area of the town that I was in. So I think that was me, you know, and you just kind of live your life, you know, not stepping out of your comfort zones a lot of times. And that was the first thing that Keller Williams implanted on me, was I was just meeting all these people. You know, it was a really great environment to be around successful people, but it was also like the sharing of information and the sharing of their wisdom was like, it was just so new to me But that's what first triggered it. Instead of saying, oh, that would be cool, or what would it be like to have that stuff, eventually it started planting the confidence in me and being like, why not me? Why can't I? And then and then that started turning into, it is going to me. I just got to figure out how to go do it, right? Which the second one is right there. The second reason people don't become wealthy is they never decide to. Even if a person reads a book, attends a lecture, or associates with people who are financially successful, nothing changes until he makes a decision to do something different. Even if it occurs to a person that he could become wealthy if he just did certain things in a specific way. If you continue to do the things you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always got. The primary reason for underachievement and failure is the great majority of people don't decide to be successful. They never make a firm, unequivocal commitment or definite decision that they are going to become wealthy. They mean to, they intend to, and they hope to, and they're going to someday. They wish and hope and pray that they will make a lot of money, but they never decide. I always say that, if life was just simply about gaining the necessary information to go out and progress, everybody would be a multimillionaire and have a six-pack, right? But it's not about information most of the time. It is about the emotional battle that goes on inside of us that is the main hindrance of why we're not going out and getting what we want. Does everybody know how to get a six-pack? Intellectually, do you guys know how? I will do anything possible to get a six-pack except for go to the gym and eat right, right? Those are the two things. You got to have great nutrition. You got to go to the gym. But for some reason, we get in our head and we kind of self-sabotage that a little bit. But either way, if you want to go be wealthy or go build wealth, you have to make the decision. I see too many people just kicking the can down the road because I'm not seeing them make that emotional, connected commitment that they're going to actually go do it. So the third reason that people don't become wealthy is procrastination. People always have a good reason not to begin doing what they know they need to do to achieve financial independence. It is always the wrong math, the wrong season, or the wrong year. Business conditions in their industry are no good. They may be too good. The market isn't right. They may have taken a risk or give up their security maybe next year. There always seems to be a reason to procrastinate. As a result, they keep putting it off month by month, year by year, until it's too late. There might be some get-rich-quick pathways out there. The vast majority of them are scams. But that was the number one thing for me is I understood that I was entering into a marathon. You want to make a small amount of money fast, that's possible. You want to make a medium amount, probably not. A large amount, probably not. Wealth building, truly wealth building, is not about earned income. It is about having a net worth that is spitting off passive income that lets you live as big of a life that you want. And every time someone comes in just, oh, I'm going to go do it in 1 year. I'm like, all right, good luck. You may be able to do it. I'm not doubting that, but I only know how to do the journey, like the long run of it, okay? And it's simply just make as much money as you can, invest a portion of that, and just let that snowball just roll, right? It's a long game. Pay the price. The fourth reason that people retire poor is what economists call inability to delay gratification. You can always tell how great the real estate market is by the cars sitting inside of our parking lot, and that was the one thing that Clay and I could agree on very early on was just the fact that we were willing to live like nobody else now so we can later live like nobody else lives, right? And we were willing to live below our means and sacrifice. It's a Dave Ramsey quote. We were willing to sacrifice, but it was hard. It was so hard. I was a multimillionaire living in a townhome that I bought for $220,000 for several years. But every time I saw a new boat in the parking lot, a new car in the parking lot, I'd be like, should we go do it? Should we go buy a car? But I was willing to at least delay it long enough that snowball gets rolling big enough that then it would almost be impossible for me to stop it if I wanted to, right? Then again, take the long view is lack of time perspective. My class is about the 10 to 15-year journey for you to become a multimillionaire, not the Grant Cardone's 72-hour method. That class is down the road. Just kidding. You can see right there 5 habits that will keep you from wealth. Failing to stick to a budget. Who has a budget in here? Who sticks to it? Nerds right there. 2, carrying too much debt, lifestyle. You guys know that our credit card debt after the biggest boom of an economy in the world, we are at absolute peak. It's like $2-something trillion right now, credit card debt, revolving card debt. Number 3 is not investing. Number 4 is investing too conservatively. Number 5 is growing complacent in your professional life. Those are the 5 habits that keep you from wealth. These are kind of really advanced ones, but these are things that Gary Keller put out is some sophisticated things that keep people from being a millionaire. We don't have to cover all these because we can send these to you, but like the urge to be liquid. They think cash is real and everything else isn't as real. So they have a constant need to convert all assets to cash at some point. I love technology innovation and I love like the ease of it, but it is so hard for me to invest that way. Like as soon as Robinhood rolled out, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm like free buy and sell stock, whatever. Even a lot of like, the crypto exchanges, a lot of my stuff's on like Coinbase. I usually pay attention to macroeconomics a ton, so I tend to be like somewhat in the early adopters of stuff, but I wasn't like tech machine early adopter. But 2017, I think, was when I first bought Bitcoin, which it was like under $5,000, and I have successfully bought Bitcoin over the last 7 years, bought and sold to the point now it's almost at $100,000 that I've effectively made $0 in crypto. Because my problem is it will like go up. Oh, I got to have that cash out. Like I got to recognize that. Okay, so I'll sell it, and then it'll keep going up, and then I'll be like, damn it, like I should invest. I got to go back into it, and then I'll buy back out, and then it just will keep doing that. And I started at $5,000. It's $100,000 almost right now, and I made zero money. So that I definitely understand the urge to be liquid. Don't see people as an investment asset. For sure, that's a big one. Owning this building has been fantastic, but I'll tell you, some of the leadership and just the rock stars in my organization, it's like owning 100 buildings, just like incredible people. You meet Jonny, like even some of my Red Sign leadership, like they're just insanely awesome people that how can you not do that? The problem most people have is they settle in their businesses. They cast a net. They basically recruit, a bunch of candidates. They don't know totally what they want, so they just end up choosing the best 7 that shows up. And then that 7, good is the enemy to great, kind of just you love them, their family, and then you just kind of end up stuck with them and they become the ceiling of your business, right? So you have to hold the bar to talent. So whatever that meant to you, any of those that connected with you, you have to de-weed before you ever go plant a garden and expect to grow veggies and flowers. Like you got to get all those weeds out. And I'll tell you, showing up to this company, I had to reprogram my brain in numerous ways. I grew up with a paycheck to paycheck money psychology, and I had to learn to figure out how to get that out. And a lot of it just started out with a belief that you do deserve bigger and better, and then you've got to kind of protect that. The first time I went to tell my father that I was buying a rental property, me and Clay were going to buy our first condo. He went on to lecture me for about 45 minutes on all the reasons why buying a rental property is an awful idea. And it kind of shook me, to be honest. I was still pretty young. He himself has never owned a damn rental property, but he wanted to go tell me why I couldn't do it. And it shook me for a little bit. Luckily, I had somewhere to kind of flee to, which was the Keller Williams environment. And we bought it. It worked out. Bought another one. I couldn't talk to my dad about money for probably another 6-7 years. And now he decides to not want to talk to me and give me advice about money. So you have to just be very careful on who your mentors are. You don't want an extremely obese person being your health coach. You don't want a broke person being your financial planner. Like you need to be interviewing the people that you're taking advice from. Like you have to choose your profits wisely. Like who are you looking up to that's giving you information in your brain? So that's kind of roadblocks, and you might have to just identify one. Just start with one. Out of all those, what's the one that you got to turn that into like actually the opposite? So let's talk about growth. There's an often told story that when Albert Einstein was asked what mankind's greatest invention was, he replied, compound interest. There's even one claim that Einstein called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. Compound interest is simply you have money, you put into some sort of investment that gains some sort of interest, ROI, or a return on it. And the whole goal of investing in wealth building is how do I let that money earn money as long as you can, and how do I get the highest rate of return for that as safe and secure as possible? So this is simply just a chart at $100 a month. You put $100 a month in whatever investment or savings account it is. First year, if you put it in 0% and shove it under your mattress, you are at $1,200. You actually, for 1 year, or even say 10 years, for 0% is $12,000. You come over here, all right, at a 20% interest rate, 38,000. 30 years, just $100 a month at a 20% interest rate is $2.3 million. Does anybody know over the career of 50-ish plus years for Warren Buffett what he's averaged on his net worth growth every single year? He's the richest man in the world, right? 22%. He's averaged 22%. Regardless of the market, some are better, but he's averaged 22%. If he would have retired at 65, like a lot of people choose to do, nobody know who Warren Buffett is. But because that time value money kicked in, he made 97% of his net worth after that because it just kept compounding, right? And that's the problem is when you sell an asset and start over, or you put it into something safe. In Argentina, they just don't trust their government very much. And so they are actually the second country on the planet for physical United States dollars. Like everybody under their mattress just keeps tons of cash. So you're talking about a 0% interest rate in there, but they've got to start getting a little bit more advanced on some of that stuff, which they're doing well. So one of the things that you probably don't, this might scare you, take you back to math class, but you got to learn how to calculate time value money. Either you just go to a calculator somewhere on the internet. One of my college classes had one of those advanced, financial calculators, which I know how to do 0 things on that financial calculator except for calculating time value money. And once you learn how to do that on one of those calculators, even on my phone, I have one right here that's just an app, this blue like calculator. So you click on it and it's just a financial calculator right there. All you're doing is just saying, all right, what am I starting with net worth? Could be 0, could be negative. What do I want to end with? What's the rate of return every year? And how much do I want to invest every year? And you start playing with those metrics. I've played with that calculation legitimately probably 5,000 to 10,000 times. Like it's just fascinating to kind of just play with that. And that's also what helps you like make better decisions now because it helps you determine the true value of a dollar, right? That $3, that $5, that $7 every day, like compounded over time, it could end up being millions and millions of dollars difference. So here's screenshots of that calculator. So say for 20 years, we start with $0, 20 years at an 8% interest, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to invest 100 grand a year. So I'm going to go make 200,000, 300,000 or whatever in a job. Over a 20-year career, I'm going to put $100,000 away. You're going to end up with $4.9 million. $4.9 million at 8%. I do the same thing. Say I started with $1 million, 8%, 20 years, 100 grand a year. All right, because you started out with $1 million, 9.6 million, right? All right, 20 years, 22%, old Warren Buffett style, $1 million, 100 grand, just 20 years, you end up with $82 million. So you just keep playing with numbers like that, and that helps you kind of learn what are the metrics that you have to be pacing for every year over a 5, 10, 20-year career to do it. Not only growth as far as learning how to do some of that, but you have to be a student. Like there's a science to everything out there. There's a science to gravity. There is a science to success. There is a science to wealth building. And unless you choose financial literacy and you choose to learn that language, it's going to be very difficult for you to go build wealth. And that was for me, as I had 0 financial positive influence up until pretty much I joined Keller Williams. And then I slowly started getting addicted to the science and learning how to actually make money. If you look at my bookshelves, it's just a lot of them are just money-making books, right? I don't listen to music while I'm working out. I listen to podcasts, I don't listen to, fiction, things, books in my car. Like I listen to, audiobooks on whatever. I have several news sources, financial ones that I read every single morning. Like you have to subscribe to it. Like you can't bury your head in the sand and expect that all of a sudden, something's going to come to you. Okay. Yep. Podcasts, let me pull my podcast up real quick. The All In podcast is fantastic. I like to kind of be a little bit left and right just to see all the perspectives, but Scott Galloway is a rock star. He's got 2 podcasts. He's one of the best economic Democrats out there that I like to subscribe to. I like, one of the most local best ones is Mark Kohler and Matt Sorensen. They actually did my self-directed retirement programs. They run a podcast called Main Street Podcast and then Self-Directed Retirement, which I'll get into self-directed retirement in a bit. But That one's a really, really good one. A lot of the KW ones, they have the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the Lifestyle Investor, Tim Ferriss a little bit. I got some nerdy ones. Like I actually subscribe to some like CPA ones just to kind of, but Wall Street Journal's another great source. I subscribe to a bunch of those. And then all the audiobooks, you just Google the top 50. Those are probably the ones I have in my thing right now. Cool. So let's talk about cash management. All right, we got rid of the weeds that are preventing us from building wealth. We've committed to growth. We're learning about money. Now it just simply comes to cash flow management. It's just what are you going to do with the dollars that come into your life? And here, there's only two kinds of capital in the world. There is you work for money, you're swapping your time and energy and whatever for money. We call that earned income. You're earning that income. And then you have capital assets. Your money is working and making you money. That's the only two ways that money flows into your life. Those we call cash flow. Once you actually earn money, whether it's that way or that way, you only have four choices of what to do with it. You can spend it, you can donate it, you can save it, you can invest it, right? Assuming taxes isn't even in the spending category or even after cash flow, however you want to do that. But we'll talk about taxes in a bit. What does 99.9% of the planet do with all of their money? Poof, disappears. Not only 99% they spend all their money, they spend 120% of their money, right? And that's part of it is at the bare minimum, you just got to direct, all right, every dollar I make, what percent do I want to go here, here, and here? Everything I know about money, a few of you heard this, I've got two teenage boys right now, 14 and 13. And there's such a balance of spoiling them and creating adversity in their life, which is always a challenge. But even money, like financial principles, most people don't like to listen to their parents anyways, but I'm like, if I could summarize everything and just teach my kids one principle, what would it be? And I chose to teach them that every dollar that comes in their life is not a dollar, it is 50 cents. So even when I have them work for me for commission for whatever it is, around the house or in a business or something, and I pay them money for that, I don't ever give them allowance. When I pay them a dollar, I give them a dollar and I immediately take 50 cents back. And then I put that in their savings account. And then I actually have been slowly teaching them how to go invest that. But either way, they were super mad at me at the beginning because they weren't making a dollar. In their minds, they were making 50 cents. But I was trying to train them that that's the portion that they could spend. And then later in life, when they get their first job and all these taxes come out, they'd be like, what the heck? I'll prepare them a little bit for that. But if they could just continue that 50 cents on the dollar habit, until they're 30, they'll become multimillionaires. It's really as simple as that. But the problem is society and social media is dictating the life that we're supposed to have versus us dictating the life that we want. It's just all these things that we can buy. I was watching the new Netflix documentary last night about waste. Just came out a day or two ago. You guys should watch it. Like America wastes so much stuff. It's insane. And then, donating, I'm a big giver. I do think that you should have a 10% or more, in every dollar you make should be going out. Be a good human, a good citizen of the planet. These actually kind of are one to me. Yes, I believe. Give Hunter a hand. Yes, thank you, Hunter. Yay. These are kind of the same. So like at the very beginning, I absolutely want to build my emergency reserves up, whatever that is, $1,000, $5,000, $100,000, whatever. But once I even got to an emergency reserve that I was okay with, like it just goes into investing. Like I'm not saving indefinitely. And I'm not talking about saving some money every month just for you to spend it in 8 months, saving for a vacation, saving for Christmas, saving for your couch, saving for a car. That is all spending. I'm talking about saving the money that you save. That makes sense. Saving the money that you save. That means you're not actually going to spend it. It truly is in your savings emergency. And then investing it. So there is two scoreboards. I went to a football game like 8-9 years ago. It was an NFL game, and right in the middle of the third quarter, the power went out. And there was still light enough outside that they decided to continue the game, but we could not see the scoreboard. Like the scoreboard physically shut off. And it was so fascinating to me how these are NFL fans, like which is a religion. Like you go to any NFL game, like it is like it's just their life. Like people just plaster stuff all over their houses, their cars, everything. Very committed fans. But the second the scoreboard went off, it was so crazy how quickly everybody, the 100,000 people in the stadium, stopped paying attention to the game. Because if you don't know what the score is, like it doesn't capture your attention, and that's the whole concept of scoreboards. And in the wealth building game, there's two scoreboards that I just absolutely think is required for you to have. There is the budget, which is like your life P&L. Money flows into your life, money flows out of your life, and how are you accounting for that? In a business, we call that a profit and loss statement, right? Like here's the income that comes in, cost of sales, expenses, your net profit. I think everybody minimum just needs to have a household simple spreadsheet or software, whatever you're doing. Here's all the money that came in, whatever sources you want to call it. Here's the money that went out. Here's actually what was left over. At a minimum, you should just know how much percent of my income did I save, invest, how much did I spend, how much did I give away, just even percentages. And then everybody needs a balance sheet. What's a balance sheet? A net worth tracker. It is just all your assets minus all the money you owe to other people equals your net worth, right? Those are two scoreboards. I physically can't remember the last time I did not do these two on a monthly basis. So I do this every single month. As soon as the month ends, I have my personal financial transmittal where I do an accounting of all the business I own. A lot of them I might have bookkeepers and accountants, but it kind of just flows down to this is the money I made this month. Sometimes it's a big number, sometimes it's a small number. Here's the money that went out. What did I have left over? How much did I invest, give, whatever. And then here, I just simply have a spreadsheet. These are all the things that all have value for me. Here's the people I owe money or banks or mortgages or whatever. That's my net worth. And every month I've been doing those. And I've committed to that legitimately 15 years ago. I'll tell you, when you're doing the balance sheet and the bottom number is a very low number or a negative number, it sucks to do it. But you know what? You've got to build the habit. And then you start making progress, it gets more and more and more entertaining to do it. Where now, I probably don't even wait till the end of the month. I like just filling it in just to update it so I know where I'm at, right? You have to do them. Who in here has a budget that they track the money that came in and out of their life on a monthly basis? Raise your hand. Who's done that every month this year? Who has a balance sheet? All the things that you have value, all the people you owe money, your net worth. Who actually knows their net worth right now? I won't make you say it, but who knows it? Okay, who has a balance sheet they update monthly? Yeah, okay, well, there was like two people, so a lot of you have work to do, okay? So everybody raise your hand, right hand, say I, say your name. Commit to doing my P&L and my balance sheet every single month, or I'm gonna go to Remax. Just kidding. We like Remax. All right, family empire plan. So again, this is the basic. Who's seen this before? I'll tell you the amount of times our new agents get in, they have a bad accountant, they have a bad financial planner, attorney, whatever, that just advises them the wrong way. They go down the wrong path of entities and how it all should flow, and then they're having to undo it all like 2-3 years later. So that's why new agents specifically, if you could set it up the proper way from the very beginning, you will love your life, okay? And there is very deep science on why we do this, but here is the wall. The wall, you have a left side, you have a right side, okay? Left side is basically you're swapping your time for money. This is all your earned income path, your real estate commission. I always recommend setting up an S corporation. You can go set up a corporation or an LLC, but getting the S election, the way that that entity is taxed, is extremely important. You get an S election on LLC, it basically turns it into an S corporation. So that's why I always say go set up an S corporation. That is the bank that you're going to have the office deposit your commission into. You're going to run all your business expenses out of there, blah, 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 and then you'll be able to pay yourself either, part salary, part dividends. This wall, which you can't get through this wall, there's total separation of ownership, taxation, all those things. And on the right side is where you're going to hold your long-term assets. There's also taxation reasons like short-term ordinary income, and then you got long-term capital gains over here. Even separating for liability purposes in your real estate business and businesses, and you just driving your car down the road to go show houses on behalf of your real estate business, there is so much liability that you do not want to come over and extend into your rental property assets. So when I get a new agent that says, oh, I'm running my commission through one entity that also owns my first rental property, I want to pull my hair out, which is why I don't have a lot left, okay? And then both of those simply should just be owned by your revocable family trust. That is basically a trust that's established that doesn't really exist until you die, and then it becomes an entity. Go ahead. Yep.
Short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals like an Airbnb that actually is tied to an asset, it's just a different income stream that you might have, some insurance policy. Most of the time it makes sense still over here. Like any flips, you buy something, you fix it up, and you're immediately selling it within 12 months. Even my land developments, primarily on the left side, just because you're buying land, you're entitling it, you might build things and selling it off. This is just holding things long term. So Airbnbs, traditionally, you're going to own it for a long time anyways. The rule of thumb on the left side is usually if you're on pace to make somewhere around $30,000 of commission, it makes sense to set it up. So if you got your license in October, you may or may not close one deal that year. Yeah, you could probably bump it to the next year, but even if you have a whole year ahead of you, I usually say just get it set up. I like to over plan and plan for my future a little too much, so I'm always creating entities way before I use them, which is an entity compliance nightmare. But I had this investment LLC set up probably a year before I actually needed it. Yeah. Yeah, it usually comes down like tax return, if you're paying for QuickBooks Online, like if it's an active entity, you might have some more expense, but I'd recommend you at this point, like if you're committed to selling real estate, even half time, go get your S corp set up. The LLC, yeah, that might wait for, the reason I liked having it before I was ready to buy a rental property is because when I was investing money or saving money, I could actually kind of just keep some cash in here separated from everything else, so I didn't touch it, spend it, or whatever. Okay. And we'll go a little bit deeper, but that's really my main goal for all of our KW agents is 30%, of every dollar you make on that left side of your world, move it over here. For me, like I have the S corp and I have my personal bank account. The second anything hits my personal bank account, money wise, poof, it's so crazy, it just disappears. Whether it is a whole bunch of money or not, like somehow it just disappears. Like I work as hard as that personal bank account balance says, right? So that's why doing distributions and paying yourself first, all the books that have been written from that, there's a psychology to it that you just don't ever let it hit your bank account that you're going to be spending things on it. And even when you're a new agent or even an experienced agent, you're not only spending it before it hits your bank account, like even when you put it under contract, our math of timesing things by 3% is so perfect, like we're so good at it, and we're like, what are we going to use that money for, right? But again, 30%. And I'll tell you the biggest myth out there is, oh, when I make more money, I'll actually commit to that. You have to do it whether you're broke, making money, or you have tons of money coming in. I started putting 30 cents of every dollar coming in. I think when I made like 17 grand in one year, like I was just committed. I don't know how I lived that year, but I just had to build that habit of doing it every single paycheck. Here's a little bit more advanced look at that. Just kind of a wealth coordination account comes in. This guy keeps a war chest. He actually has a certain percent going into real estate holdings, flips. He's got a big hard money business. And then basically whatever's left over, he actually will roll down into his family checking or his family spending. But you just have to have a plan for your money, investing wise, giving wise, before it hits the bank account. And you got it, whatever percent it is. So I think the first year I probably actually started with 15% of every dollar. But quickly within the first year, I upgraded to 30 cents. And I've been doing 30% of my income legitimately for 15 of 17 years that I've been in the business, no matter how broke or how not broke I've been. Okay. Build a base camp, debt savings. We don't have to really cover this, but again, there still is probably some science on, debt snowballs, some emergency reserves before you really start going out and investing. You want to go start a business, that type of stuff. Like at least if you have credit card debt that you're paying. I ordered a new Delta Reserve Amex for one of my companies, which I never carry balances on them. I just use it to accumulate Marriott points and Delta points. But they sent me the little thing, and I have perfect credit. I'm in the 800s. I've never been late on a bill ever in my life. Like I have a great balance sheet. But even when they sent the credit card over, the interest rate on that credit card, 27%. 27%. I'm like, holy crap. Like, and that's not even ever having a late or bad credit. Like people that probably have bad credit, it's what, 40%, 50%? I don't even know. Like it is the biggest, enemy to building wealth is having high interest debt. So does it make sense for you to go, have debt and then still try to invest? Probably not. I think that's where Dave Ramsey is fantastic at just helping people get out of debt, treating every dollar very important. So a lot of new agents are in that phase. That's probably the content in the curriculum that you should submerge yourself in and just religiously track every dollar. Emergency reserves, just whatever that threshold is for you. Even just a couple $1,000 is a great emergency reserve right now until you get some debt paid off, whatever. Every time the market shifts like it has, everybody says the same thing. I wish I would have had more cash. I wish I had more cash sitting there, And I have great equity. I think that's the lesson that I learned even is I have great equity, I have great cash flowing stuff, blah, blah, blah. But again, I'm a victim of just all my equities trapped in properties, and stuff that just does not make financial sense to sell, or cash out refinance or whatever. So even having a great balance sheet still isn't cash, Warren Buffett's sitting on $329 billion right now in Berkshire, which everybody's like, oh, what's going to go on? Is the market crashing? Like, I think he just wanted to diversify a little bit more. So anybody read the Cash Flow Quadrant book? Yep. Kiyosaki, great investor. That's another podcast I subscribe to. He just talks about ESBI. So E is an employee, you have a job. S, self-employed, you own a job. Business owners, you have a system that works for you. Investor, money works for you. Employees just straight out having a job. I've actually had a job because I'm the regional director, so technically I have a W-2. But I've been self-employed where I just am on my own. Most of you are all self-employed, which you realize it's not as cool as some people make it out to be because you basically just own your own job at that point. Really, it's not a business in my mind until you can physically step out of that business for 6 months or longer and the business still fully functions and can actually grow as well. So even a lot of businesses, like I'm fully out of my team, I'm fully out of this brokerage, like I don't have a job within it other than being the majority owner and just kind of some leadership, some motivation. But if I disappeared or I died, would it just keep rolling and I would stay with my ownership? Probably not, because like they're going to want an active partner. So I even know when I die, I'm not going to have this legacy or cash flowing things that are in the businesses. Investing to me is actually truly, if I died, would I keep the ownership in that? And that's where real estate assets for me come in. Crypto could be in there, financial products, resources, minerals, all that stuff. But the journey that you have to get obsessed with is figuring out the lifestyle that you want, and you got to live a very low lifestyle if you're going to be building something. But even your dream lifestyle, what does that look like on a monthly basis? And then the whole journey is how do I fund that more and more out of passive or unearned income versus me earning income? So if your life costs you $10,000 a month to live, all right, out the gates, you've got to be able to just earn it. Then you're replacing it with cash flow, passive income things to the point that you're 100%. And that's what financial freedom is to me. Whatever life that you want to live, whatever your mission statement in his life is, you have enough assets that are kicking off passive income to the point that you truly are living financially free. Okay. Even people that go sell their company, they go sell a company for $2 million and they just got a chunk of money in their bank and they don't actually ever learn how to invest it and they have that passive income. It's just a ticking time bomb until they spend all the money in their bank and they're going to have to start back over on a job. Or even if you roll into a market that's shifted, I lost a lot of mentors when I got in the business, lost everything in the recession. So we've got our butts kicked in the real estate market by dropping 45% closed units. We're on pace to close the same amount of units this year since 1994. So this is a 30-year historical low for us. And what I told people yesterday is we've got about 120 million more people in the country now than we did in 1994. So just the pent-up demand and all the stuff that we're dealing with is for sure crazy. So investment strategy, there's really two basic positions. Is either you're going out and owning something with it, or you are controlling it, you're owning it, it's kind of a little bit destiny in your hands, or you're lending it out to someone that is investing it one way or another on your behalf. And then there's kind of two basic states that it lives in. There's a passive way, and then there's an active way, okay? So in the passive way, that someone else is kind of doing it, and you've kind of lent it out, that's where money markets are, CDs are, bonds are, T-bills. Basically, anytime you give it to the government or a bank or whatever, they're lending that out, making more money on your money than they're paying you for it, right? Owning things that are passive state is basically they control it. Stocks, right? So I own some Apple stock or some Meta stock or Alphabet stock or whatever. yeah, it can be a great investment, but I have zero control over the decision making that Apple does. Even when they send you those little emails about proxy votes and stuff, it's all BS. Like you're not actually getting a choice, right? Real estate investment trusts, funds, mutual funds, all good. And so if you're going to put money in there, you can make some money, but someone else is making those decisions. On the active side, lending at the high level of you control it is where you're owner financing, private lending, you're talking about hard money, a bunch of those things. And then owning stuff in the control it phase is businesses and real estate. Where do most people get rich on the planet? CDs, bonds. It's owning businesses and owning real estate. And I'll tell you, I've dabbled in almost every investing category out there because I just am obsessed with learning. Everything that I don't own or control traditionally has not either made me very much money or I've lost money in it. And that's why you just got to learn these lessons over and over. And then you get more progressed in your real estate career. You start building the confidence and realize there's lower risk than you think there is on buying that piece of real estate over long term. What is it going to do? Even the stock market sectors, there's just a million places to put money. 99% of my stuff has all just been in the real estate world. I've played in all these, lost a lot of money in those, but owning real estate and owning businesses attached to real estate has made me 99% of my money. Okay. Now, now that I'm starting to have a desire to be less active, when you're active in your profession and you know it, yeah, put your investing in your control. You're seeing all the good deals. You know the market better than everybody else. Like you should be buying rental properties, right? But once you want a little bit more non-correlating assets, you want a little bit more diversification, you can start building a plan once you get your net worth up. But that's one of the challenges I see too in their investing journey. Say someone, gets to the point they have $20, $30, $40,000 in like investments out there. It probably makes sense just to put it as a down payment on one rental property. It doesn't make sense to have 2,000 here, 2,000 here, 2,000 here, 2,000 here. Getting even started in the rental game is a huge, component. Here's even some age-based growth things that I found the other day. Just even age, what your expectation of your net worth growth. When you're 18, 30 years old, you should be expecting 50 to 100% annual growth rates of your net worth, primarily because you most likely have a low lifestyle. You can invest a majority of your income or at least a high portion, or you should be, and your ability just to make money and then immediately invest it could double your net worth. So if I have $10,000 in my investing journey, I go make 20 and I take half of that and put it in my investment. I basically just 100% X'd my net worth, right? So you have a little bit more control with your earning capability at the beginning of your career. Once you start getting that nest egg going, it's a little bit harder to move that by just putting money into it. And it actually just physically has to grow. And depending, you get closer to retirement, you don't want to be in diabetes cure investments or whatever, which I lost $100,000 doing that. But it was going to work, I promise. The problem with fiat money is that it rewards the minority that can handle money, but fools the generation that has worked and saved money. We don't have a ton of time to go through this, but fiat money is a government-issued currency that is not backed by a physical commodity such as gold or silver, but rather by the government that issued it. If you don't study history, you're bound to repeat it. President Nixon in 1971 took us off the gold standard, which dollars weren't backed by gold sitting there in Fort Knox, if you don't know this. What has happened since then? So this is the cumulative inflation when we removed ourselves from the gold standard, which was right there. Look at that. So basically what it says is if you think dollars and cash and savings and the number in your bank account or your CD or whatever is somehow going to help put you on that wealth building journey, it's not. Like eventually that dollar over a period of time will become worthless by just keeping it in a dollar. And the best way, inflation, I didn't really understand inflation too much until we went through this whole journey post-COVID. And now I'm like an inflation expert on what it does. Inflation really is the biggest threat to a federal government, which is why they were freaking out when our inflation started going up, even though they kind of caused it, but they also saved us from a depression. I don't know. But here's a good example. So say I have $1 million in 1971. Right now, in January 2024, it has the same buying power of $7.7 million. If you reverse that, say I had $1 million in 2024, it had the same buying power as $129,000 in 71. So what's that? Like 87% devaluation since 1971. So the point is, paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value, which is zero. All it is paper or cotton, whatever money is actually made of. Which that's, we don't talk about this, but this was emphasized to me from my Argentines down there because they don't really have a structured, great lending banking system for mortgages. 97% of their properties have to be cash transactions down there. And we got close to starting to have some banking products right before COVID hit, and then it just wreaked havoc on them. They're now just starting the conversation again. But the benefits of rental properties, cash flow, appreciation, tax benefits, you're getting your mortgage paid for. The one nobody ever talks about is that fixed rate, like a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So say your payment right here, I go buy a rental property in 1972, the annual payment's $1,210. Your income's going up, the dollar's getting devalued a little bit because of inflation. That actually plays into your benefit in a 30-year fixed rate mortgage if you don't refinance. So what that actually means is annual after tax, right here, annual inflation adjusted payments. So 30 years later, it felt like 1210 out of our income or whatever. By the time we actually even get 30 years later, it actually feels more like $285 that payment because it's fixed. So one of the challenges and one of the things that the mortgage industry does is they try to coerce you to consistently refinance. Like what's the actual average length of a mortgage in the United States? No, it's 6 to 7 years. Do you know where mortgage companies make the vast majority of their money? It's in the first 6 to 7 years of a loan. Like the way that it's amortized, they make 80-something% of the interest within the first 7 years. And then the next 23 years, they only make about 20-30% of their money. So they're motivated financially to get you to refinance. So all these fixed rate mortgages that we all, that the whole industry is stuck with, I think it's 87-88% of mortgages are 3.5% and under right now in the country, fixed rate mortgages, which is why not as many people are selling because it doesn't make sense for them to sell because if they were to sell now with that rate and go get into another house with a higher rate, that house is going to be smaller or crappier than they could just stay in theirs, which is the dilemma that we're dealing with sellers. And then all the buyers that don't own anything, they're really in a tough spot because they can't afford, the payments that have doubled over the last 2 years because of interest rates. And that's part of it is just, you just got to get in the game, however it is, you just got to get owning something because your money, we have agents still that they're just so stuck on having emergency savings and they haven't yet bought a rental property. And I'm like, well, that 100 grand is now worth 90 grand, 80 grand, whatever. Where that rental property, if you would have done that 5 years ago, would be worth 300,000, All right, again, appreciation, cash flow, debt pay down, owning real estate. It's a slow game, but it is awesome to beat inflation. The only way to beat inflation is your money needs to be in assets that appreciate. Okay, whatever that one was. So streams of income. I already talked to you about the law of sequential mastery. But if you want to start going down the road of streams of income, which should be some of your goals over a period of time, my main advice is those streams of income have to kind of fit together. So if you want to go sell real estate, you're making money that way, does it make sense to you to jump out and go start a window cleaning business? No. Like eventually those are going to kind of come in conflict, competing for your time, and you washing windows isn't necessarily going to help you sell real estate at a higher level. So a lot of the businesses that I said yes to, that I got into, was kind of a natural supplement of what we're already doing. All right, we're selling a lot of houses real estate-wise. Hey, maybe it makes sense to start buying into the brokerage that our real estate team's at. So I start buying into the brokerage. All right, we're actually directing our clients to the title company or the insurance company or the mortgage company. Maybe it makes sense to kind of carve off a stream of income of that. Keller Williams has a profit share system. So I'm like, all right, tell me all about the profit share system. When we make money as a real estate brokerage, so say we make $200,000, usually our brokerage is somewhere around $150,000 a month to run and pay the staff and the building and all that. $50,000 is net profit every month, just in this analogy. Traditionally, any other brokerage out there, that 50 grand just goes straight to the ownership, right? In Keller Williams, half of that goes to the ownership. The other half goes into the profit share pool that goes back to the agents that have actually helped attract agents and grow the company. That's where there's a profit share income. So I was making profit share within a year of me even just being a brand new agent because I helped attract someone, then I attracted someone else. So anything that I could keep doing my day job here at the office but still carve out streams of income, that's when it makes sense. I've seen so many people think they're entrepreneurial, they want to go build stuff, and then they go build something, and it just pulls them out of real estate. And real estate actually was their highest per hour producing income source, and now they're swapping it for whatever they thought would be a great additional opportunity. So just don't grow too fast. And then again, you see the same structure. It looks super complicated, but it was just one step at a time. This is my S Corp. This is my LLC. And we went out, red sign team, wherever that is. That was my first stream of income. We were out selling houses. Then I started buying into the real estate brokerage. Then we started getting into development. Then we got into title. Then we got into insurance. Even here, that's my LLC. The very first, 3, 4, 5 rental properties I bought, I was so broke that I had to figure out how to go get into rental properties for $500, $1,000, $5,000, or whatever. It wasn't until probably my 6th or 7th rental property that my world was moving enough that I could effectively put 20% down on a property. So, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, that's a whole nother real estate investing class, but we physically had to move into stuff. So don't buy something you don't want to live in if you don't want to live in it. The second one is we did owner financing, seller financing, which is a great option right now. You should be looking at that. How do you just assume someone's mortgage and minimize the amount down payment? Even a lot of people get their real estate license to invest, and then they end up selling, but even using your commission as a down payment. We did the BRRRR method, where you buy it, you repair it, you rehab it, whatever, and then you rent it out. We bought a couple properties where we borrowed hard money, bought the property. We were very confident in our ability to fix it up and kind of stay close to a budget. We fix it up. We were able to cash out refinance, pay off all the hard money that we bought it and used to fix up, and then we built in our down payment. We built in that 20% down payment. Or maybe we were able to build 15%. We used our commission as the other 3% or something. We got as close as we could to minimizing that. The other one I always say is just partner up. I always say I got way less time. I got more money and less time now. But when you're newer, you have less money and more time. Go find someone, say, hey, if I find the rental property, I'll manage it, I'll do everything. You put the down payment down, we'll own it 50-50. I wish I would have thought a little bit more like that, but I was just too timid and just, I got to do it on my own, Even some of the ways I'm learning about other investment categories is I will actually go into an investment fund specifically for that. I want to get a lot more into oil and gas and natural resources and lithium and stuff like that. So I threw $100,000 earlier this year into an oil and gas leasing fund that sends really good updates every single month, so I can kind of learn about that category. I want to have my lending company roaring a little bit more. So I've thrown some money into a couple hard money funds and private lending funds, So those are usually short term, but it kind of gives me a learning pathway to learn about those. Okay. And then kind of wrapping it up. Does anybody know what cost segregation is? Ding, 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 ding. You get the word taxes makes people run the other way, and you can't. Taxes, all it is a playbook written by Congress that is telling you where and how to invest your money and how to try to keep as much as you can. There's really only 3 income tax brackets. There's low income tax brackets who make below medium income tax brackets. All of them usually will never pay taxes into society, into the country. Those are the sector of the country that is always going to be living off social programs and the government and all that sort of stuff, which is us. High income tax bracket people, those are people that have net worth, they have money. Congress is writing laws every year telling them where to invest their money and how to actually go make the most amount of money. The government doesn't create jobs and the government doesn't grow the economy. Who does that? We do that as citizens. So the government has to actually write laws to motivate people on where to start businesses and where to go build stuff and take the risk of losing their own money. That's why you'll see a lot of that rich upper class will not pay a significant amount of their income in taxes because they're the ones actually putting their money on the line and creating jobs and all that stuff. So that's why that middle income tax bracket will usually bear the tax burden for all 3 sectors. So it's kind of the first couple of years that I was making really good money. I think it was the first year after several years in real estate, I made $300,000 income that year. And that year I paid $120,000 in taxes. So I ended up netting $180,000, and I'm like, why the freak did I even work that hard? I probably could have just made $180,000 and kept the majority of it versus working harder just to give more of it. And it was just a big wake-up call for me that I'm like, I have to learn more about taxes. And I'm all about contributing to society. Like the things that I built, we pay an outrageous amount of taxes across all the different tax systems out there. Even property taxes alone for this building, $70,000 a freaking year that we have to pay, which is crazy. But there's like all sorts of levels of taxes. But when it comes to income taxes that I can control, I want to minimize those as much as possible. This building right here was the first time my light bulb just exploded in the fact that, residential and commercial rental properties, when you go buy them, you have all those benefits, but tax benefits for real estate professionals is unreal. So part of that is when your full-time job is, or your primary work is real estate, sales or the real estate professional category, you can go make a bunch of money. But then when you take losses on rental real estate or your investment side, those can marry up and offset each other. That's part of the real estate designation. You have to learn about this. But anybody else don't have that benefit traditionally. They go make a bunch of money over here. Even if they lose money over here, say they're a doctor or a dentist or whatever, they can't take those passive losses to offset the taxes that they're going to pay on their income. So a lot of lawyers, doctors, dentists, all that, they pay a lot of money out of their W-2s on taxation. And so this building was the first time that we accelerated the depreciation. So when you buy a rental property or a commercial property, it's like when you own a construction company. I got to go have a truck, right? Every construction worker has a dope, jacked up truck that they got to have, but they beat the heck out of those trucks. They're pulling stuff, it's getting dinged up, they're throwing their shovels in it, all that thing. It makes sense for the IRS to allow them to deduct the cost of that truck as a piece of equipment expense in their real estate business, in their construction business, right? It makes sense. If you buy a drill, whatever it is. In real estate, even if a rental property is making money, we are allowed to deduct the cost of that rental property as a depreciation expense that isn't a real expense. It gets added into your QuickBooks basically, that turns your profit into a loss, and then that loss can go offset the left side of your world income that you're making, okay? So for example, this building cost us $6 million. $6 million to buy the lot, do everything, build it, whatever. It's 26,500 square feet. We bought 2 lots, this lot and that little weird diagonal thing. We had to rezone it because we needed more parking to build the size of building that we wanted. There was 3 other commercial buildings that were gonna go up right here. We started first, we built this, and then all those build, and now we have these cool warehouses and parking lots right there. Just kidding, not cool. So $6 million, because we own the business inside of this, Keller Williams, we were able to go get an SBA loan. So SBA loans, they are the worst loans in the world to get, but once you got them, you're really happy. But part of an SBA loan was 10% down. So 10% was our down payment. So we put $600,000 down on this thing to make it work. I own half of it, Boyd Brown owns the other half. So I had to come up with 300 grand, he had to come up with 300 grand. Even in the economics of it, we were able to use like commission and development fees, kind of just our time that we were doing the deal as offsetting our down payment. So realistically, I probably put 200 grand, he put 200 grand in for this building. The building is $6 million, traditionally in a straight line depreciation method, like normal straight line depreciation. Residential properties, whatever the cost of the property is, say it's $270,000 of a property, it's divided by 27 years, which means you would take a $10,000 deduction into your rental property profit and loss every year. Commercial buildings is over a 39.5 year time period. So a $6 million building, if we just took the straight line, same amount of depreciation every year, it would have been about $120,000 that we would have added in as a deduction. He would have got 60 grand, I would have got 60 grand. So I would have got a 60 grand loss to offset whatever money I made in real estate sales and commissions and stuff like that. We did a process called cost segregation, which basically is accelerating more of that $6 million into year one to take an immediate year one deduction to help kind of compensate for the down payment and getting the thing started. We did that process. It's like $10,000 for a commercial building to have them come in, do the whole assessment. They create you a depreciation schedule that you give your accountant. Out of $6 million, year one, we took a $1.5 million depreciation deduction from this building. So I got a $750,000 loss, he got a $750,000 loss. Coincidentally, that year, like 5-6 years ago, all my income sources on the left side, I made about $750,000 income. That year, if this building didn't exist, $750,000, how much do you think I would have paid in taxes that year? 300 and something thousand, probably almost half of it would have disappeared. So I would have worked my butt off, 750, 300, so maybe four something's left. I made 750 that I was going to pay income tax on. I just coincidentally had the $750,000 loss over here. Those married up on my tax return, offset each other. I was a zero on my taxes. I paid $0 in taxes that year. Crazy. So instead of paying 300,000 to the government, who's fantastic and efficient at spending money, I actually just funded my down payment, 200,000, and I probably still saved $100,000. So just delaying, and we'll pay taxes eventually on this, through all the other means, or even we sell it, like we'll pay a big capital gains tax, but it's kind of just kicking the can down the road. So you're holding more of your money to continue to grow that snowball until you move to the point that you want to start pulling money out or selling stuff or taking the income or whatever, okay? And that is, we call that the gift of the IRS gods. Like it is the coolest thing. Even when I tell my Argentines about the depreciation category of our IRS law, it blows their mind. Like mortgage market and then depreciation blows their mind that the government would allow us to have it. But again, like if there's not tax benefits, like it would decrease the amount of people that want to go build stuff and take that risk. It all kind of goes into the equation and pro forma. And in the country right now, our biggest problem isn't interest rates, it's lack of inventory. We're 5 to 6 million homes in the country underbuilt, which is what's driving just like the chaoticness of prices, right? So what we need is interest rates to come down, and then we just need to be building how many we need to be building, which is around 1.2 million a year, but we need to go dig into that 6 million. But we're not even on that now because it just doesn't make sense for a lot of builders to build because costs are high and the rate of borrow money is so high. So sorry, that one's a very complex, but at least need to plan it in your head because I at least heard what the word cost segregation meant. I mean, was 7 times before I'm like, okay, I should probably learn what the heck that means. So if you hear it enough, maybe it'll procure the desire to go do it. Okay. And then really I just say build wealth and, follow your plan. The only other thing is you grow in your wealth building and your journey and your income. The average 1 million net worth person living the same exact lifestyle of someone that doesn't have $1 million, same exact lifestyle, is 80% more likely to get sued than the person with no money. It's just there's a habit out there of attorneys going after people that have money, right? So as your world gets bigger, you have to make sure that your liability and legally entity, compliance, protecting yourself, but you're also trying to mitigate that with insurance, right? Whatever the scenario may be. I worked at Allstate Insurance for 2 years. I was kind of the office manager. Then I got my license, started selling for 2 years while I was at school and also starting my real estate business. And fairly boring job, but I'm glad I did it because it helped create a base layer of risk management a little bit. And you think that you live a great life and safe life, but it's not necessarily the things that you do, it's the things that are done to you that sometimes are out there. And we just had a handful of crazy scenarios happen. You just never know what you never know, right? One guy that was our client, he was on the golf course. He sliced it like Josh always does on the tee box, hit a guy in the head, knocked him out, and the guy had to be life flighted from the golf course. I don't know if you know, but life flight's not very cheap. All of his medical bills, all that, he was in the hospital for a month. It was somewhere around like a $700,000 liability. And because he hit the golf ball, he got sued for it. We had just barely called him a couple weeks before that to bump up his homeowner's liability protection. Because when you have a home policy, you have like, if something happens to the property, you're insured, but it also comes with this liability coverage, which is protecting you. That liability coverage is very cheap to bump up the levels, like in perspective for the coverage they receive. And he was at 100,000. And anytime we saw a client with 100,000, because it was so cheap for them to bump it up, we would proactively call them and say, hey, you should bump this up. It makes sense. So we were able to get him to bump it up to 500,000 2 weeks before this happened. So when he got sued, $500,000 was covered from his homeowner's insurance policy that carried him over from his golf course. Crazy. Even just this rich guy in St. George had this huge house and he had paid off his mortgage, which when you pay off your mortgage, you don't have an escrow account anymore. So your insurance and taxes have to be paid by you. I guess he just wasn't down there. He got lost in the mail. His homeowner's policy actually lapsed for his St. George house because he just never paid it and he wasn't getting the mail. He wasn't returning phone calls. 3 weeks later, his house burnt down. Luckily, Allstate, they're a good company. He'd been a client for like 30 years or something. So they actually still covered his house, which I was shocked that they did. Legally, any other insurance company or most insurance companies would have just been like, sorry, you didn't pay us, like it lapsed, and you just never know. These natural disasters that are going on in the country is just crazy. And most likely, if there's a likely natural disaster that could happen in that area, insurance companies don't cover that liability. What is the most likely natural disaster in Utah? The big one, the big earthquake's coming, right? What do our homeowners policies not cover in Utah? Yep. And the other one's flood. Yep, flood. We don't, tornadoes are unlikely, hurricanes, that type of stuff. So when I bought my house, because I have put significant amount of money in equity in my house, as soon as that started going up, I went out and bought an earthquake policy and I bought a flood policy. I hate freaking paying them, but I'm like, I've got $1 million plus equity in my house, and I'm like, that'd be a big loss if all of a sudden, like, and I live on the lake. So what are you gonna ask?
And there's, can you help me understand, I believe, if I set up an LLC or real estate, would there be a wall between my net worth and if there's anybody off or something?
Yeah, that's like a very deep question. So it just depends on all that. But yes, depending on how it goes. Like these are the main categories of insurance and what you're trying to insure against. Life is you're insuring against your life, and at a minimum, just everybody should have some sort of cheap term policy or something, like just having some sort of benefit that pays for your death, your funeral, all that stuff, even leave things beyond. Health insurance is the stupidest industry, but you got to have health insurance, right? Disability insurance, you're 90-something% more likely to be disabled before retirement than you are to die before retirement. And very few people have disability insurance. That was the wake up call for Clay and I. We had a KW Westfield indoor soccer team years ago. It's been 7, 8, 9 years. We were over here by the dump at that soccer facility, and Clay got kicked in the face, and he's completely blind in his right eye. But there was a period when he was in the ICU that the doctor thought that he was going to be fully blind because your eyes tend to like match each other. So he said it was a very high probability that because he's blind in one eye, the other one's going to go blind. Thankfully, it didn't, but it was such a wake up call to us that I'm like, he's useless in our business, blind. Like, what is he going to do? He can't show houses. He can't look at a computer. Like, yeah, he can maybe make phone calls. So like immediately after, we went both and got disability insurance. His was outrageous because he was already blind in one eye, so like they gave him like a smoker rating. But then car, home, umbrella, and most of these things all have some sort of liability protection on them. So you just got to think through like any sort of transactional mistake or liability. A lot of times as agents, that's covered under our errors and omissions insurance. Some of our agents that have a lot of stuff going through their businesses, they might go get a general liability policy. I have life, I have health, I have disability, auto, home, umbrella, all that. I have some business policies, some landlord policies, but then I have an umbrella policy that kind of goes over all of it, that if all of those gets tapped out, it goes into a general $2 million umbrella policy. But even entity structuring, that's what I'm saying, is having that wall and separation. There's just very deep strategies on that depending on what your world looks like. And that's usually if you end up kind of climbing the net worth stage. I'm totally happy to have a private appointment with you and kind of consult you through it and kind of maybe give you some advice or point you in the right direction. O.J. Simpson's usually the example I give at the really high level. Like he was not guilty, I know, but I think he was guilty. He murdered someone, technically, maybe, I don't know. Murdered someone, immediately that procured 2 sets of trials. It was a criminal set of trials and then the civil trial. Everybody knows about the criminal trial, right? If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. He got off. He was found not guilty of that, so he got off, didn't have to go to prison for that. The Nicole Brown, the Brown family civilly sued him. And in that court trial, he lost. And they ended up getting a judgment granted against O.J. Simpson for like 20-something million dollars. Part of the process is they had to go do detective work and investigate every bit of his assets. And one of the assets that he had was a pension from when he played in the NFL. So they usually get a pension once you make it so long. And it was something like $450,000 a year of income every year until he dies. They put a value at like $2.5 million or something of that. And they were trying to get that and take it over to the Browns as part of the judgment process because he had structured it in some layers of entities they were actually not able to pierce through the entities and get that access because he had given that ownership up to like an irrevocable trust scenario. So again, like even murdered someone and somehow protected his assets. I don't recommend, murdering someone and trying to protect your assets, but there's just a lot of sophisticated things that could help you protect it. And you are usually your worst enemy. Like it's really hard to shelter, negligence. Like you drunk drive and run someone over, like there's probably not a lot of entities or insurance that's going to cover you on that. But if it's an accident, you're texting or something and you hit someone like, and you're driving to show your homes, you're going to get sued. Like, how is that going to be covered in your world? So, okay. And then what's that? If you're going to build wealth, you need a legal container to hold your wealth. Your estate plan is the legal container to hold your wealth. Your estate plan should be a combination of entities, real properties outside of trust, entities, real properties inside of trust, wills, and insurance. Cool. And then what will your legacy be? Whew. That's a lot. Okay. Any ahas? Give me like 2 or 3 and we'll end. What stuck out to you? Or what was helpful to you?
And then LLC, S corp kind of controls. That I didn't know so much about the S corp. That was interesting.
Oh.
I just don't know when to get an S corp, but you clever.
Yeah, 30,000-ish. You're definitely there all this next year. So if you don't have it right now, maybe think about it, but 2025, absolutely, everybody should have one. That's what the general statement, the accountants and stuff will say, $30,000 of income from real estate in a year. Because part of that is the taxation thing. That's not even talking about liability and setting other things up. That is just, you'll make enough money that starting to divide your profit in the entity up via salary versus distributions starts to save you enough money that it makes sense to have the compliance and the accounting fees of that. But you even get to 50, 60, 100 grand, like you'll save $10,000, $15,000 from specifically having an S corp versus not having it. And it's all to do with payroll taxes and, income taxes. So
that's something that I definitely want to do. So like, I think figuring out how I want to do that is probably the most difficult part.
yeah.
So I like hearing.
Yeah.
But done some of these habits and it's worked for you.
Yeah. Yeah, getting kids to listen to me is a whole nother class somewhere else that I'm not teaching. So, okay, good. Anybody else? Yeah.
Like immerse ourselves and go all in.
Yeah.
For a decade.
Yeah. Just those things right there. Just commit to being in mastery, spend your time, more of your time on the most important things, bring some systems in, stay learning based. I think it's hard to find a lifestyle of selling real estate as your day job, the income potential of it and the fun. I get shown houses in Magnet at 9:30 p.m. is not awesome sometimes, but generally like the real estate profession is fantastic. And I think people just tend to forget why they decided to get into it when they reach those boredom or complacency stages. That's why we call it falling back in love with it. But your ability to go make 100, 200, 300 grand, with the input in and just how fun our job can be. And then simply just 30% rule, take 30% of that off, move it to your investment world and just commit to doing that for even 5 years. You'd be shocked like what you can accomplish. But part of just even the net worth game, like it was so much effort for me to go from negative to 250,000 net worth. Like that's the hardest phase. And then 250 to 500 or a million. Like you even get to a million by just running that playbook for 5, 7, 9 years, however long, it takes depending on the money you're putting in and the market and the timing and stuff. Like you get to a million, like it's like Josh, like going from fat to fit is incredibly difficult. But once you're fit, to stay fit and keep momentum on it, it's what? 30% of the effort that it takes to, maintain it that it does whatever. So work ethic wise, I guess, but he's fit, not fat. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Yeah. I just want to choose. Like to me, it's choice, freedom, that stuff. I want to be mobile. I think we have an over obsession with retirement, even that relationship study, Harvard, the 85-year-long study on relationships. like they've found pretty clearly, like the more you isolate yourself, the more you stop doing things you're passionate about or whatever, it is it shortens your life, But to me, like, do I want to be showing houses at 70 at 9:30 in Magna? No, but I want to be able to choose what I want to do. And then even the things that you even love to do even more within your world. I love investing. I love teaching. Like I love changing people's life because I'm just passionate about what the company did for me. So like a lot of times that doesn't feel like work, So I think I don't want to work 40 hours a week my rest of my life, but I want somewhere I can show up. I want, to pour into people. So I think it's about choice, flexibility, freedom. It's doing whatever you want, whenever you want, as much as you want, with whoever you want. That's success, right? So, okay. Thanks, everybody.